Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Ishan Isaac with Ishan on air, and we would like to uh, give you some key information with regards to what's happening in the US as well as all over the world, and also with regards to some of the impacts of tariffs and how the US economy is doing and what is going on because a lot of people and businesses we're living in very uncertain times with regards to uncertainty in the business world and the markets they don't like uncertainty, so that's why the stock market and the economy is definitely on unstable ground and we are in uncharted territory, but hopefully some predictions and some chatter out there that things will become stable by next year remains to be seen. And then there's also midterm elections next year. So inside the Trump world, this person, Laura Loomer, and how she rose, obsessive research, Oval Office visits, and MSN shared some of the key insights with regards to quote, most of the time when my information goes viral, the president hears about it, sees about it in some fashion. One of the cabinet members tells him, or one of his golf buddies tells him, and he ends up asking me about it. That's quote unquote, Loomer said in an interview with the Washington Post. So this is important because those of us who are paying attention or trying to pay attention because there's so much going on in Washington, D.C., that's how some of these things work. So another quote, that's how it goes down. It's really that simple. People just, they won't seem to be able to fathom that. That's how it works, unquote. And then there are some other people talking about her and how she's within the inner circle of Trump or the White House. In phone call, Trump invited Loomer for July 24th meeting. And then there's some more information where Trump himself said, quote, I know she's known as a radical right, unquote, but I think Laura Loomer is a very nice person, quote and unquote. Again, Trump said Sunday, answering questions from reporters, that was about a week ago. She's a patriot. She gets excited because of the fact she's a patriot, and she doesn't like things going on that she thinks are bad for the country. I like her, unquote. And that's President Trump talking about Laura Loomer. Then there are some other pictures, and those of you who are following me on the YouTube Live and Facebook Live, I thank you, and please subscribe if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel. And here you can see Laura Loomer taking pictures of pro-Palestinian protests and those protesters outside the New York Stock Exchange. That was last year. Trump invited Loomer to join him for lunch, but when she arrived at the White House that day, she learned that staff had scheduled her visit to be a regular meeting, and she did not dine with the president. And then there's more information, quote, I know for a fact that the president has expressed concern about Philip Roach being in his administration, Loomer said, unquote. And then, quote, I don't work for the president, but I do know that when this report came out and when the president himself saw it, he expressed concern, unquote. So Laura Loomer, that's where sometimes you have to look at in the big picture and the bigger scheme of things, where who is saying what and who is President Trump listening to, and then how some of this information with regards to social media and how the administration also acts on some of those things in terms of the MAGA base and how the right or the alt-right or extreme right is thinking about some of the key issues. And we have to look at in that context, from activists seeking traction to major Trump influencers. So that's basically what is going on. In her 20s, she worked for Project Veritas, the far-right activist group that gained fame from making surreptitious videos to discredit mainstream media figures and other ideological opponents. In 2017, she was banned from Uber and Lyft for a viral rant against, quote, Islamic immigrant, unquote, drivers. A year later, she was kicked off Twitter for a post calling Rep. Ilhan Omar, President Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, she's a Democrat, anti-Semitic. And then after Elon Musk brought Twitter, he reinstated Loomer and many other right-wing influencers, giving her a kind of semi-celebrity status on the MAGA internet. So couldn't get a job at McDonald's. That's what MSN reported. Loomer is, quote, 100% self-made through her ferocious personality, unquote, said Corey, who has known her since her Project Veritas days. She creates the echo chamber, quote unquote. After she was banned from social media, she told Corey, quote, I couldn't get a job at McDonald's, unquote. He recalled in an interview. Corey worked with her to build up a donor base, recalling her being the fastest rising one of his clients who started from scratch. So that's where it's interesting. Then the Biden administration, as the executive director of a newly created disinformation governance board, before intense criticism from right-wing influencers, forced it to shut it down. So Loomer also tapped into that symbiosis role where, quote, a conservative influencer makes something a scandal, and if it picks up enough traction, then it becomes policy, unquote, said Nina Jankowicz, a researcher who basically served this Biden administration's as the executive director of newly created disinformation governance board. So at this point, Trump doesn't even need to see posts from Loomer for them to have an impact. Jankowicz said her relationship with the president is well known, and, quote, the underlings in the administration need to act quickly to prove their fealty, unquote. The Wall Street Journal, Trump's Texas gambit ignites nationwide battle for House control. So Texas Democrats, they've flee the state, and then that quorum issue and everything that the Republicans are doing, it's legal. You may be surprised to hear that, but yes, gerrymandering is legal, ethically wrong. But in this day and age in politics, you may question that what should be considered as ethically and morally wrong, if there's anything left in terms of that angle within the mainstream politics. And now MSN has also reported that Bill and Hillary, in fact, Newsweek has reported that Bill and Hillary Clinton subpoenaed over Epstein files. That's Newsweek. And then House Oversight Committee subpoenas DOJ and top officials in Epstein probe. So this is still out there. And then NPR has reported Trump calls for U.S. Census to exclude for the first time people with no legal status. So that's another important factor. With preparations for the 2030 census already underway, President Trump said Thursday he has instructed his administration to start work on a, quote, new, unquote, census. In a social media post, Trump also called for an unprecedented exclusion of millions of people living in the U.S. without legal status. Now, this whole departure from current standard of redistricting practices would be advantageous for Republicans and non-Hispanic whites. A 2015 report by Republican redistricting strategists concluded its legality is an open question before the Supreme Court. A 2020 presidential memorandum ultimately confirmed another goal for Trump's first push for a citizenship question, and that question, and in terms of the data that would allow for the unprecedented exclusion of immigrants in the U.S. without legal status from what are known as the congressional apportionment counts. What that means is that how many seats you're going to get in the U.S. House of Representatives, because some states and some areas, because of redistricting, then some states will get more U.S. congressmen or congresswomen, U.S. representatives. So that's why gerrymandering is so important. And in North Carolina, that's what happened, and it's been widely reported in mainstream media, the three seats that Republicans picked up, and that gave them the majority. They still have the majority in the House. So Article 1, that's NPR reporting, Article 1 of the Constitution has required a census every 10 years since 1790 for once a decade redistribution of congressional seats. It's not clear whether the results of a census taken years before 2030 can be used for reapportioning each state's share of seats in the U.S. House of Representatives and votes in the Electoral College. And the U.S. Supreme Court ultimately stopped a question about a person's U.S. citizenship status from being added to 2020 census forms, but declined to rule on whether people without legal status can be, for the first time in U.S. history, excluded by the president from apportionment counts. Former President Joe Biden affirmed the long-standing practice of including the total number of persons residing in the states in those tallies of the 2021 executive order, which Trump revoked on the first day of his second term. So we know this, but those of you who don't know, well, now you know. Using the census to ask about a person's immigration status has yet to be tested by the Census Bureau. Now, is this person a citizen of the United States? That was basically the question that was something that they were trying to add, is likely to produce faulty self-reported data and discourage many households with Latino or Asian American residents from getting tallied in official population totals, which are also used for driving up trillions in federal funding for public services in communities across the country. So that's why it's important to you and everyone listening and watching, because that's how you get funds in those districts and in those states and in those areas. Chronicle has reported, Houston Chronicle, BP layoffs expand by 32% as energy giant shifts focus to traditional oil. Houston is likely to feel the impact as BP expands layoffs under a $2 billion cost-cutting plan. Beyond full-time employees, BP also is trimming its contractor workforce. Since January, it has let go of 3,200 contractors, with another 1,200 exits planned by the end of the year. Now, so far in 2025, the company has achieved $1.7 billion in cost reductions, including $400 million from corporate overhead. And Thompson accredited quote, performance culture, quote unquote, changes across the organization for helping push through the savings. BP's long-term goal is to reduce the structural costs by up to $5 billion by the end of 2027. And this is 1,500 US stores under the Travel Centers of America, AMPM and Thornton's brands. While the company confirmed the division has been affected by the reset, the extent of those impacts has not been disclosed. BP employs about 4,000 people in the Houston area, more than any other location in its global footprint. While the company hasn't said exactly how many local jobs will be impacted, concerns are growing that the Bayou City, which is Houston, could take a hit as the oil giant continued its company-wide restructuring. That was reported in Houston Chronicle. And immigration officials issue green card update to married couples, reported by Newsweek. Financial Express has reported H-1B workers, a temporary work visa in the U.S. receiving, quote, notice to appear, unquote, despite 60-day grace rule after a job layoff. H-1B beneficiaries whose employers have withdrawn their H-1B petition due to employment separation are receiving notice to appear from USCIS. And this is where you can see the 60-day grace period, notice to appear. And obviously, when you hear the layoffs and news like this, it would be tough. H-1B, especially tough for H-1B visa holders. This is a matter of concern for those foreign workers doing jobs in the U.S. on H-1B. According to H-1B visa rules, if a non-immigrant worker's employment terminates either voluntarily or involuntarily, they and their families must leave the United States within 60 days, or when their approved validity period expires, whichever is shorter. The notice to appear NTA form I-862 is a charging document that instructs a foreigner to appear before an immigrant judge and specifies the nature of the removal proceedings, the legal authority for the proceeding, the factual allegations supporting removal, and the charges against the foreigner. So that's why it's so important. So given that violent criminals and now anyone with any kind of legal status or issues like H-1B visa holders, I highly encourage all of you who know people on H-1B work visa, what have you, that they need to talk to their immigration attorneys. And if you happen to be in the layoff situation, you have to have an exit plan, because otherwise your family will be impacted and families could be separated. It could be a mess. And some people are already thinking this through. And now, with regards to Trump raises India tariff to 50% over Russian oil purchases. So this is where President Trump is very clear now. He has implemented an additional 25% tariff on India days after he already imposed a 25% levy on the major trading partner. I find that the government of India is currently directly or indirectly importing Russian Federation oil, Trump said in an executive order. Trump signaled Tuesday that he would be raising tariffs on India quote, very substantially over the next 24 hours because they are buying Russian oil. They are fueling the war machine, unquote, according to an interview on CNBC's Squawk Box. The White House announced Wednesday that it is imposing an additional 25% tariff on India, bringing the total levies against the major United States trading partner to 50%. I quote President Trump, quote, I find that the government of India is currently directly or indirectly importing Russian Federation oil, unquote, President Donald Trump said in an executive order. Quote, accordingly, and as consistent with applicable law, articles of India imported into the customs territory of the United States shall be subjected to an additional and valorem rate of duty of 25%, unquote, the executive order reads. The new tariffs are set to go into effect in 21 days, according to the order, while the previously announced 25% tariffs are set to take effect on Thursday, which has been now reported on Wednesday, August 6th. So it's already in place, 25% tariffs. And then in 21 days, another 25, so it will be 50%. Trump's new tariff rate on India is now among the highest levy on all of the United States trading partners. It's the latest sign that Trump is moving on making good on his threat to punish countries that buy Russian oil, as he's increased the rhetoric in recent weeks over President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. So that's reported by CNBC. Politico has also reported more in terms of the GDP and 50% tax on steel and aluminum, with regards to the imports that U.S. has, and then the U.S. economy is also growing by 3%. Big American companies are also reporting growing tariff expenses, and then Politico has also reported Trump is still negotiating with China, Mexico, and other major countries, and he has pledged to levy tariffs on a variety of industries, including pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and lumber. And then obviously 50% on Brazilian goods over its treatment of former President Jair Bolsonaro, and a 50% duty on India for purchasing Russian oil. Israel cabinet, Reuters had reported, Israeli cabinet may order complete Gaza takeover. So that's what the Israeli cabinet has now already announced. And Germany has suspended arms exports to Israel over Gaza plan. Newsweek has reported. And then there was an interesting article that I read about the New York Times, and it's in the New York Times magazine, why wars don't end anymore. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go entirely over it, but a golden age of peace, is that over? And this United Nations Security Council, with the deadlocks, and then the liberal peace, and then they talk about democracy, free markets, and rule of law. And then the peace of the 90s was predicated on a muscular American leadership. So that's a key point that the New York Times has raised. And then the Ceasefire Project, a research initiative that tracked outcomes of about 2,202 ceasefires from 1989 to 2020, found that 68% of those were never formally written down. So that's why sometimes the ceasefires are not very, I would say, much more effective, especially with regards to what's going on with some of the situations in the world with some of these ceasefires. And I would also like to share this key information with regards to how the entire tariff situation, obviously, with the economy, and we're still going to find out in the next few weeks or months, but we're still are looking at data where no one knows what would be the impact on some industries, and it's very difficult for the business leaders to plan and look at some of these imports. So liberal internationalism, that was reported in this piece of the New York Times magazine, and the pessimistic world. They talked about both sides have to think they can't win, and they have to trust each other sufficiently to go to trust each other and to go to the table. So that was reported, and then they have to make painful decisions to accept painful compromises, and that's basically how the liberal peace and communism is dead, Hoffman wrote, but the other great post-war ideology, liberal internationalism, also dying. That was the question asked in this article in the New York Times. Zelensky rejects Trump's suggestion that Ukraine cede territory to Russia, reported by the Washington Post, and then CNN and other media outlets have reported Trump and Putin summit in Alaska resembles a slow defeat for Ukraine, and this is where the Witkoff's proposal would like Russia is close to encircling two key Donetsk town, Pakroworks and then Kostyanovoska, and may effectively put Ukrainian troops defending those two hubs under siege in the coming weeks. And then Europe is also wary of mirroring the failure of former UK Foreign Secretary Neville Chamberlain to stand up to Nazi Germany in 1938 of the worthlessness of a code piece of paper signed by Kremlin that has repeatedly agreed to deals in Ukraine, and then simply use the pause to regroup before invading again. So this is going to be a test for President Trump and his administration as well in terms of what would happen now in this Putin and Trump summit coming up soon in Alaska. And then secondly, Trump claims that his thinking around Putin has evolved, and he has been quoted saying, quote, disappointed, unquote, disgusting, quote, unquote, and tapping me along are all newcomers to his lexicon about the Kremlin head. And with that, I would like to thank our key advertisers, and especially Affordable Insurance of Texas, AITinsurance.com for your auto insurance, commercial insurance, business insurance, health insurance, homeowners insurance. Please contact Affordable Insurance of Texas. 713-785-4000 is their number, or you can visit AITinsurance.com, AITinsurance.com, and their phone number is 713-785-4000. And you can certainly visit AITinsurance.com, Affordable Insurance of Texas. And if you're looking for some good formal menswear for grooms and even for brides, go to Roopsari Palace, and you can visit online roopsari.com, www.roopsari.com, and you can order online if you're in any states in the United States of America or anywhere in the world. As a matter of fact, just go online, and if you're in Houston, Greater Houston area, go to their location, brick and mortar location in Houston. They are located at Hillcroft on Harvin. You cannot miss it on Harvin Drive. Roopsari.com, and you can certainly contact them as well. And you can give my reference. You can get some discounts. Their phone number is 832-267-0065. Roopsari.com. So with that, I would like to thank you for joining me today, and continue to subscribe and share this information, because I report, you decide. And with that, I'm signing off and I'm going to be continuing with the traditional media. Thank you.